So there's a guy who's got a channel called Prisoners No Longer Accepted. He's just like a family guy. He does a lot of camping and stuff. He's on Instagram but also YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel as well. He's actually been arrested and got a charge when he was just literally stood near or next to a ULEZ van. He was sort of doing a protest partially, but he didn't go near the van, and he's facing a charge. They took all his camera equipment, his drones, all his equipment. I really think the police are bullying people and bossing people. There's certain journalist rights. There's legislation in place for journalist rights for equipment that the police can't take. This James Carson guy who's been hanging, sort of doing protests with and around Matt Hardy Houston, right? I think something's happened to them both because the channel's just gone. I think his TikTok got removed apparently, but other people have just started posting his videos instead now, like Blade Runner's channel and stuff. I think some of his channels are up, but I think something's happened to him. Well, I know it has, because that James Carson, he said basically that he's got charged and this took all his equipment as well. But he knows all the legislation around journalism, and if you're next to a scene gathering footage, the police can't take your equipment if you're broadcasting, because a lot of these... The thing is, when you're filming and broadcasting, it is a representation, and you are promoting it live, actually, even for a campaign. So you're actually making an advertisement for the campaign. It's promoting the campaign. I really think that this Prisoners No More channel is quite a bit of a crazy name for a channel, because he seems quite an alright guy, and until this ULEZ incident, I think his channel's something to do with, like, he's in caravans and motorhomes, and they're quite small and confined spaces, and he likes to get out in the caravan and go walking in the countryside. I think that's where he got his name from, not really anything to do with ULEZ actions. Actually more to do with his camping, getting out in a small box into the countryside and then going walking. But he didn't actually get involved whatsoever in what happened to one of the vehicles that apparently got vandalised, claim the police, right? So there's no reason at all for him to have his footage and videos. Now the thing is, most of us, when we're recording, or when people are recording footage, it's for the channels and it's to promote the cause and the campaign. And so therefore you're always permanently in this journalism slot, and not only just journalism, you're actually making promotional adverts for the campaigns. So, and it is protected with immunity. So the police can't, if it's for political purposes, which it always is, they can't seize the equipment, period, because of the fact that you're doing a promotion for the campaign when you're intending to put it on Facebook and social media. The purpose and intent to put it on social media is automatically going to be used for a representation to promote a campaign. So that journalism legislation, it's more protective than the journalism legislation. It's more protective than the journalism legislation, because journalists aren't doing petitions. And that legislation protects journalists just to do news programmes, which are not actually a political campaign, which has got even more protection. So the 1688 Bill of Rights immunity will protect all of your equipment. The police can only really do this when it's actually got nothing to do with a political campaign, but they're completely ignoring that. They're completely just blatantly disregarding it, just complete disregard. Now, this gentleman from this Prisoners No More channel, who's quite a nice guy actually, he's like been through the whole email process with the police, right? But he's really been pushing it and making quite, he basically was, he got the solicitor involved and he was questioning the police and pushing them, recording everything. And he was really, really pushing to get his equipment back because he clearly hadn't actually done anything himself, right? And the police want, obviously, to look at the equipment to probably see if there's any evidence on that equipment of, what happened. That's probably why they want to do it, even though, while there is a video of someone doing something to that vehicle while that gentleman himself is actually nowhere near it. So there's no reason to believe that, he did it. But the thing is that the police won't even really answer any questions, but not even sensitive information, just basic, normal information. Like when a police officer, he said to the gentleman, he was actually giving quite friendly emails saying, look, we're keeping this equipment for so long and then we'll try to get it checked and get it back to you as quick as possible and so forth. But the Prisoner No More channel wanted to know who his superior officer was who was making the decisions, and he really didn't want to tell him. And he kept evading the question. We've got a right to ask, who's in charge and so forth of certain investigations and inquiries. Particularly, you've got a right to have something escalated and even speak to someone at a higher level. And he really didn't want to answer the question. And he kept evading it, but he kept pressing him on it, and he eventually got an answer. But this is a kind of example of the police, once they kind of get the teeth in, so to say, like a pit bull, and it won't open its jaw, won't let go. They're very... I mean, I know it's part of the training, and the police are a military-style, rank-and-file organisation and unit with training, but they really wrestle. Even when you're in the right, when you've got a lawful right to have information or ask a question. And this is where we see examples and we find evidence of them just not wanting to comply and not complying in certain circumstances. And we know that, they can be very friendly in public and they've got public concern for safety and that's their job and so forth. But when it comes to charges, and when it comes to, prosecutions and legal process and things like that, they really flex their muscles, but they overflex them quite a lot. And that's demonstrated when they didn't even want, he refused just to, give the name of the supervising officer, didn't want to do it. Now that model, that kind of like dynamic, that, what's happening in the relationship between the public and the police when it comes to situations like that, that is really an embodiment, the perfect example of what's happening actually with the charges, because it's the charges that many times they shouldn't be bringing or can't even lawfully bring. They can't legally bring the charges, or there aren't even any charges because there's no offence. And it's that when they want to push charges, they don't really like what you're doing, or they don't really want you to do it. And there might even be a political police agenda to try get these groups of prosecutions through, or those groups of prosecutions through, or certain prosecutions through, because the police themselves kind of don't really like it and want to discourage it. And they want to punish people for it, and they want to try to stop people doing from it. And the government have been trying to change legislation, by the way, remember, as well, when actually you can do it. You have got a legal right to do it, and it is perfectly legal, and it's actually illegal, unlawful for them to bring charges. And that is where the main problem is. Now, I've got this page open. I've had this page open while I've been talking, because this is kind of like a really, really good example of what's happening. And this is from the 38 Degrees emails that they send out, like email, they send out email updates of what's going on and with various campaigns and so forth. I'm not a great fan of 38 Degrees because I've got a dispute with them themselves at the moment over how they're running the website. And what they're doing to people when they claim that they're actually, for helping protesters and helping petitions, and they claim that they're, supporting rights, but that there's things that they're doing actually wrong. But I agree with them on this point here, and it's these 2 pages here, right? And what basically is happening is one of the campaigners who is running proper petition campaigns lawfully, right, and promoting them, they've created a QR code which advertises the campaign, asking people to sign, right? And they've been painting it on the pavement, which is public owned property, right? And then the council have been sending vehicles to go take them off. And it isn't random cleaning. They've actually sent them to those painted representations, right? So they're removing them now. The council is meant, when it comes into campaign area, politics and campaigns, once elected, the council has to be impartial, and it can't take a side or position in a campaign. It can't support or oppose an individual campaign, right? That's what the law is meant to be, because they've been elected, to provide public services and be impartial, Now, what happens when they start removing or taking down campaign material, campaign promotion? They're actually acting to... It's not like... It's not even opposing or supporting a campaign. It's actually intervention, and it's actually breaking the process. YouTube have got a whole video on this. They say you can't use YouTube to intervene in campaigns. In America, there's a special legislation page about it on the IRS called 501c3, which is illegal political campaign intervention, where non-profits and certain organisations aren't allowed to intervene in the campaigns. It says they're allowed to support a campaign or oppose a campaign. So you can give money to one campaign or give money to another campaign, or refuse to support a campaign, or even put a notice out that opposes it, don't support that campaign. So opposing a campaign would be telling people not to support it, but it wouldn't be intervening in the campaign. It wouldn't be doing something to spoil, damage, remove, or hinder the other person's campaign efforts and their advertising and promotion. And that's what the council are doing. In fact, actually, there's a lot of times when the council are promoting their own campaigns when they're not supposed to, like trying to get the public behind certain things they want to do by promoting it and trying to influence the electors to support it when they shouldn't be. But that's another issue that I want to talk about separately. So the council actually cannot take the adverts off. Now, you might be saying, well, but they're painted and they're on the pavement. Well, so what? It doesn't matter. I've got a page, an image that I put lots of legislation onto it, and you might not understand what all that legislation is, but it's all the relevant pieces of legislation that apply to this dynamic, right? And it is absolutely clear, without any question, without any uncertainty, and without any doubt at all, that there is a class of advertisements that are painted, and you can combine classes of advertisement together, and you can use paint class C, and you can use political adverts, which is class F, which uses an enactment of law, which in our case is the 1688 Bill of Rights, immunity, and you are protected from painting signs, because the council can do it if they want. They can paint signs, and anything that the council can do, you can use as well as a voter to oppose the council, right? Particularly, like if you're using paper signs or like notices or something like that's quite fragile. What if it's like really stormy weather or something and it all gets damaged or destroyed? Paint lasts longer. It's just that is the basic. That is the logic behind it and the reason for the law. It's called Deemed and Express Consent, and it's a Town and Country Planning Act, and you automatically get it through the Act gives you it when it's for political purposes when you're using that enactment of law, right? So you campaign. Now, so that's where we are with this. So the council have been unlawfully removing these, and no, the police haven't been stopping them. There's something in the law which gives the council or police the right to obliterate signs and notices, but not ones that are using this enactment when you can't be held to any commitments by any other act. And they can't obliterate it because they're actually doing something which is injuring your campaign. Political campaigns is above the police, it's above local crime, and it's above civil cases. Political cases to the government are illegal casework, and you are policing this law, and you are policing your pursuit for new policies when you put these signs and notices up, and it's actually none of the police's business. They're actually using police public facilities to intervene in political campaigns, which is illegal. The police are actually acting as a political body and unit, and they're using the police force for political ends and gains and means, and they need to stop. I'll challenge Mark Rowley on that. In fact, Mark Rowley can stick it because this council here, in this 38 Degrees email, they're breaking the law. And the police aren't taking any action. They've got no interest to take any action against them at all whatsoever, or stop them. Because the police and council have both got the same agenda and the same objective, which is a political objective, and they want to get these certain cameras and surveillance. When the police are pursuing, when the police go to all these council meetings and they have their little say and they want to advise the council to get barriers put up, to get some new bollards, raising bollards, when the police want to get some new surveillance cameras or a new speed camera or anything like that, when the police turns up at the council meeting and they're giving advice and they actually say we want this and we want that, that is they're asking to use public money to get things that they want put through council. That's a political position and representation. Now, the ins and outs of that when it comes to, exactly in what capacity are they making a representation. It's meant to be advisory or how to better police. But really, if we want to oppose it, we're actually opposing the police because the police actually are wanting something to be done, clearly to help them out in serving a public role, but they've got they want it and they support it, and they want they might want a new bollard on a park to stop people parking in there. When you're opposing that, you're actually opposing the police politically. Right? You are politically opposing the Met Police, Mark Rowley himself. If he's sending police units and police officers to council meetings and saying, oh yeah, well, we advise on getting some more bollards here or there. If you don't want the bollards there, right, the police is your opposition, right? Yet he's arresting you, right, for promoting a campaign to oppose him. And not only that, he's taking your equipment off you and restricting your ability to inform the public, promote the campaign and advertise it to the public. As far as I'm concerned, it's despicable. Now, we don't say the police don't do good work. We don't say the police, a lot of police officers are, considerate people and so forth. But the fact is, they are breaking the law. And they're not actually doing anything to the council because they're pals with the council. Now, the thing is, when it comes to this this Carson guy and Matt Hardy, I've just been watching, the videos and so forth, and, it has been getting a bit kind of intense, shall we say. But there are political rights in effect. And what I don't like about it with this, firstly, this guy called Prisoners No More channel, I'm not sure what the gentleman's name is. The Prisoners No More channel, he has been pushing to get his equipment back, and he didn't actually have any involvement in what happened to this vehicle. And further to that, they're just it's like taking a toy off a kid. They're using police powers to take your stuff off you when it's not even the journalism laws. I mean, Carson has been going on and on about this journalism laws. He's really looked into this journalism laws, and they can't take your filming equipment off you if you're just on-site filming. But it's not even that, because the journalists aren't actually, they're just filming for a programme. They aren't doing it specifically to advertise or promote a campaign, because the journalists are meant to be impartial, right? Journalists are impartial in a campaign, right? Now, with the legislation in place to protect the journalists who are impartial, because, journalists, are just turning up to film. This is what Carson's talking about. The Class F advertisement, particularly when you're stood making it, because you're filming it, because it's actually been recorded on film, because when you make a production, when you've got actually physical adverts that are, printed or painted, which are promoting the cause to the public, that's one dimension, right, on site. But when you turn up there and you go live or you're filming and then you're broadcasting an advertisement for a campaign to the general public or to YouTube or a section of the public, you are actually you're not just a normal journalist. You actually are filming for a political campaign, and you are actually therefore you're multiplying, you're adding the dimension of that advert being on that post or on that wall or even on the pavement or wherever it is. You're then making, however 500, it could be 100 copies or 300, 400,000 copies on people's screens, or recording it for the intention of sharing to a section of the public. And it's becoming a digital advertisement. It actually becomes a digital advert and all those equipment. Any device, whether illuminated or not, whether it's a micro SD card, whether it's a disk drive, whether it is a mobile smartphone, any device which holds the image of those promotional adverts or the words to promote the campaign, or just to show people what's going on with the campaigns, right? All those devices are protected through the Town and Country Planning Act, because they're all a device. You don't even need to bring that Journalist Act into it. In fact, it's not, because it goes on a level higher with more protection than the journalists. Because the journalists don't actually, they're only reporting. You've got these journalist passes and so forth, like on YouTube. I think certain, Russell Brand, for example, he's on that level. When you're actually doing it specifically for Stop ULEZ, right? It's more than that, because you have got immunity. Now, I want to talk a little bit about there's something to do with whether anyone actually did any damage or not, or whether actually anyone did anything or not other than just being there and filming. That's the main thing that this Prisoners No More channel and what Carson have been talking about, which is that they actually didn't actually do anything themselves. But then I want to actually go on to it, because what we're talking about is those vehicles. We're talking about those ULEZ vehicles, right? Now, it is absolutely clear from the 2007 and 1990 Town and Country Planning statutory instruments, without question, without doubt, without any uncertainty, that your campaign on that pavement not be prosecuted, and it's promoting the campaign, and the council can't remove it, or the police, they can't obliterate it, not allowed to, right? But yet they are, right? So we know they're breaking the law already. We know police don't want to answer questions, they don't want to give information unless you wrestle with them. They're already wrestling with us to get kind of like what they want and create a certain status quo or line of what we can and can't do, how they want to contain the situation to what they want. But it's not about what they want. It's about what we can do and what we can't do. Same with the bollards, Now, we're actually opposing the police, because a lot of these ULEZ cameras and a lot of the ULEZ surveillance, it's tied into enforcement when it comes to other things as well. These ULEZ cameras can be used as different types of enforcement cameras, and it's actually something that the police have been engaged in. It just can. It's not just that it can. All these systems and networks of cameras are ultimately a wider strategy for law enforcement surveillance as well. Now, that means that the police are actually wanting these cameras and pro these cameras. In fact, they advise on them in meetings, council meetings, and give an opinion, and even make requests for things. Now, that means that they actually are the part of the authority. Well, the police are a road highways authority, but they always try and deny they are unless they use their powers. They're actually the opposition. The police are the opposition. Now, so what's actually happening there is the opposition are taking our material down. The police aren't just saying, we don't like what you're doing, we don't want you to do it. They can't say you can't legally not do it. In fact, the police have been actually saying that we lawfully can do certain things, So the police aren't actually really allowed to, well, they're not allowed to arrest you because you're their opposition and you're doing advertisements and promotionals to oppose them. So they can't do it. They actually are your opponent. And they're not supposed to touch or get involved with any of the advertising or promotional at all. Now, so with the actual vehicle itself, though, so what is the charge they're bringing? What are these prosecutions and charges themselves, right? Because so far, people have been arrested just for being next to places or near places when they're saying they didn't actually do anything. Well, what about the people who have done something? What about the people who have done something to an actual ULEZ vehicle? Let's look at that. Well, you can paint on the pavement, yet they're removing it. So they're lying about that. And there's plenty of other things that they're lying about. It clearly states, and I'll tell you what it is, if any police officer wants to say, well, what is it? Well, it's Class C and F together. It's Class C and Class F adverts together, right? Tell me it's not. Well, it is. It is Class C and Class F adverts together, and you can do it, right? And you're not allowed to obliterate it. And the police are the opposition because they're having meetings with councils and they're pro more surveillance and cameras, right? We know that through the Big Brother Watch, through what Big Brother Watch are doing with their campaigns, when there was Priscilla Dick, when, she was wanting more cameras and facial recognition. In fact, the government have been saying that, the Secretary of State and the people in charge of the Home Office and so forth have been saying they want to actually add more facial recognition software incorporated into these cameras now and so forth. So they're all pro for it, and they're trying to stop us opposing it. Now, so what is the full extent of the law that you can use when it comes to, for example, like this painting on the pavement? Well, to start with, right, the ULEZ vans aren't private property when it's all happening because of taxpayer funding. Even contractors who are private, if they're contracted on contract to the public, they are being used for public services in council. They become public use. It's contract. Once it's contracted to the public, it's on a contract for public services and public use, right? Now, these ULEZ vans, and this is challenging Rowley on this, they are not private property. And therefore, legally, when it comes to what you can do lawfully, that act, the Town and Country Planning Act, gives you automatic deemed and express consent when it is not private property, when it is public property, public domain or public use, or under, I would say also under public contract, right? And if he wants to challenge me on that, he can do, right? Public contract use. So, because those ULEZ vans are our vans being used for the public, right? You can put political adverts on them. You can put political adverts on them through the use of the bill, which gives you the right to do it without suffering prosecution or imprisonment, right? That's the law. And there's nothing to stop you using Class C with Class F on those vehicles, really, right? Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, right? Because therefore, what it comes down to is the distinction between what is damage and what is an advertisement. And that is dealt with under the definition of advertisements. And this, now you're bringing in like the Extinction Rebellion case now with Gail Bradbrook and Ian Bray. Now they got acquitted by jury because the jury didn't think they were guilty. There are lots of arguments whether we should even be in front of juries and whether, because you're doing a political campaign and the public are signing and supporting it and backing it, that already is the consent of the public to do what you're doing. And the police and government haven't really wanted to tackle that yet. But this is when you have to study a lot of the old laws and origins of petitioning, and you're not supposed to be prosecuted through the courts anyway. When you're petitioning Parliament, it's meant to have its kind of own procedure, which was in the Tumultuous Petitioning Act by the King's Bench, but then they even stopped that in the 1688 bill, legal prosecutions by the King's Bench. So it's questionable whether or not you should be prosecuted at all, and whether or not all the signatures on the petition, if you get charged by the police, you show them, like there's a Stop ULEZ petition on there, I'm sure most people have signed it on Change.org, you show them that is itself, if you show the police that petition, you say, this is public supported, juries decided they support what we're doing, right? Or even if the police take you to the court, you hand them that and you say, this is public backed, it's peer supported, it's peer approved, which is really where you get the automatic deemed and express consent for in the first place, really through the power of the Act. You don't actually ask any person in the government or any authoritative person for permission because it's an approved procedure with public backing. If you hadn't got any signatures, it's harder to argue, but if you've got a compelling case yourself for what you're doing, this is when you're looking at like the Inquiries Act. Should it appear to a minister, whether you hand the minister a petition or not, or someone report to him, the minister, that there should be a public inquiry based on evidence of public concern, which is all your signatures, and they are regarded as evidence or facts, just, facts to substantiate it, which, one person can put together facts. The thing is with that all the signatures are regarded as evidence. That means that they're all statements. That means that they're all legal statements and evidence. So that on the petition, all your signatures from the public are your evidence of public concern or public support. Now, if you've got public concern for or against, you've got a problem because you've got a conflict. And that's why really then it's decided not by the police or the courts, by the Parliament when it's a political matter, you see, and it's not for the courts. But that is something that, we need a little bit of help with because it involves some history, research, and, but it's very, very, very compelling that is how it should be. It's well documented that is suggestive of how it should be. So paint on the van, right? What are these charges that the police are actually bringing against, Prisoners No More? What are these charges that they're bringing against Carson or, Matt Hardy or anyone else? Even though some of these people say that they didn't even do anything anyway, they were only stood there, therefore they want their equipment back. Well, even if they did do something to these ULEZ vehicles, the law says that you can't be prosecuted for putting advertisements promoting campaigns on council property, and the ULEZ van is council property, and you can even use paint. So it all comes down to, and there has been so many court cases around this that it's unbelievable, and they're still arguing it now. But I know that they've broken the law, like with the Angela Ditchfield case, and the CPS even went to the High Court when they knew that they ignored these two acts of law. These acts of law, which I'm talking about, which actually make they legislate the whole thing in. You know, it's all because of the bill, but this is all like modern law with clauses. It's all fleshed out. And they just disregarded it. You know, the CPS basically were behaving like this council with these taking these signs off, just taking them off. Just don't care, just not bothered, right? And that's what the Crown Prosecution and Police did with Angela Ditchfield. You know, she blatantly did not break the law. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever, with absolute precision, clarity, that she could not and should not have been prosecuted for painting Extinction Rebellion advert on that building. It's absolutely clear. It's not even doesn't come into the word doubt. It is she couldn't be prosecuted, but yet Max Hill, the Chief Crown Prosecutor, not only disregarded two complete acts of law, which are the precise acts of law that deal with it. He even took it to the High Court to get her convicted after she'd been acquitted, because they wanted to try and make it illegal or lead everyone to believe it was illegal. And if I think that they acquitted it and they'd planned to raise it to the High Court, and I think the court was in on it, and I think that if they took that argument to the High Court, then they could say that, well, it's been decided in the High Court now, so other people couldn't argue it in the lower courts. I think it was a strategic move. It was a stupid move because it was blatantly illegal. It was blatantly criminal move by Max Hill, and Max Hill needs to be prosecuted for that. He disregarded two entire acts of law. He disregarded the two entire acts of law which deal with it. Now, what the police like to do is they like to use the Criminal Law Act when there's anything happens. They like to always call this thing criminal damage. Criminal damage, criminal damage, criminal damage. But it's not. It's not criminal damage if it is advertising or promoting a campaign. And even the Criminal Law Act has rights, privileges and interest for use of the enactment. Now, there is criminal damage, but there is also what isn't criminal damage, and so the definition, the division line, which doesn't put it into the Criminal Damage Act, is when it means something and when it's been promoted to a section of the public or the public at large, and when it means something for a political campaign. Now, if you this is really what the argument would be in court when it comes to these ULEZ vans, I think, if you want to do it properly and if you want to do it correctly. And that is that it's sort of like, if you've got like a jacket, right, and someone puts a cigarette burn in it, right, that's damage. Now, what are the motivations for it? They didn't like you, they didn't like the jacket, they wanted to damage it. It might have been an accident. There could be various reasons, but it's, firstly, they're not, they haven't got a live active case to the government, and they're not even claiming any rights anyway, right? So that is what you call a damage. Now, a bump or scrape on a car is an exhibit of damage. A scratch on a car is an example of damage. But when the damage becomes a representation or a notice or sign in connection with a political campaign or for one, then it's not damage anymore. It's not in the Criminal Damage Act. And when it means something, now, this is all to do with the definition of advertisement in the 1990 Act, which is any word, letter, symbol, representation, and so forth. Now, this is where you've got a creative license, and the police are always quoted for having creative license, which is the con of the century, because it's what does it mean, and to who does it mean something? What does it mean if it does mean something, and to whom does it mean something? Well, the thing is, a letter, Extinction Rebellion are known as XR. So there's two letters, an X and an R, right? Writing letters, symbols, and so forth. Now, you might say, though, well, what about scratch? If you etch it in there. Well, trees have got, how many trees have got, things etched in them? Or, like there's a lot of vandalism at the moment at that Loft Crew cairn in Ireland. People are going up there vandalising it. No one gets prosecuted. There's lots of scratches in people's names in, police stations, in the cells and so forth. I don't know how often they prosecute people for it or not. Now, the thing with the pain is that if you write "Stop ULEZ" in the paint, and it is promoting, it does mean, we want to stop the ULEZ. Now, the thing is, if you paint "Stop ULEZ" on a "Stop ULEZ" van, and it's only promoting it to people who walk past, telling them, you want to stop ULEZ, right? But the police and CPS will say, but, where's the petition to sign, where's the case? Well, the thing is, the case and all the activities are going on online, right? And part of the promotional activities for that is when people go film it and make videos for it. Now, when you are making a production and doing you got to look at it when you've got these events happening, these incidents, these scenes happening with the ULEZ vans, and people are promoting "Stop ULEZ." When you've got people filming it, you are actually, every person filming is making a "Stop ULEZ" advert or promotion, particularly when they're putting them on the Facebook groups. Now, that itself, therefore, automatically protects them with a higher protection than any of the journalism laws or anything that Russell Brand's using or anything that Carson is claiming under journalist rights, because journalist rights have never seen the level of political rights. Newspapers, investigators claim that they are, always investigating things, but have they got a case open with the government, they say that, it's influencer, but, the thing is, ULEZ have got cases open with the government, so, all these phones around what's happening shouldn't be seized. Even if there is a crime committed and there's evidence about that crime on there, if the whole thing's being filmed to promote "Stop ULEZ", then you're exempt. You don't have to hand the evidence over to the police. They could ask you for it. They say, ask you for a copy of it. They don't have to take it off you. They don't have to confiscate it from you. That's your phone. Why don't the police, say, can you give me details and hand over all your video evidence? They just want to take it. And that's where the police, I think, are muscling in too much. They're taking people's toys off them. They are taking your stuff off you when it's actually not just some random incident at the side of the road, some random other offence that's claimed for political rights and so forth. And that's the main problem that I see with all these cases, even Extinction Rebellion. Then they never say, I'm claiming, this right or that right. They don't actually, for some strange reason, call it or pull out the petition or whatever and say, look, there's, 100,000 people supporting this or whatever. It's public backed action, and you could say to the jury, I don't even think Gail Bradbrook's ever said to a jury, I don't think Extinction Rebellion have printed out all the signatures they've got and gone into court when the jury's there and then given it to the jury and said, this is public supported, by the way, I hope you know that, jury, and then, this is it. And in fact, some of the justices have been misguiding juries, which is something that we're on with at the moment, when they're telling them that they were trying to say that they couldn't, say not guilty and so forth, or they shouldn't, when they're not supposed to misguide them. And it comes down to this, like the jury can decide based on fact of law, point of law, or on what they think were their own opinions. And they were guided away from their own opinions. And that's like, comes back to this petition of right and Magna Carta and so forth. What matters, therefore, is, what's actually happening to these vehicles, What is this claimed damage that the police are claiming is damage? Now, this is the thing. If the police are taking everyone's phones off them in cameras, then we can't see what's happening. We can't see, right? So we won't know. I mean, some things happened to, Carson and Hardy, I think. But everyone's asking, what's happened? We don't know. When his channel's gone down, we can't see what's happened, so we don't know. Now, they should be automatically covered for political rights anyway, because they're engaged in political actions and activities. So it has immunity and protection, If we could see the video footage ourselves, then we'll know, what it is, and then we'll decide whether we can continue supporting it or not. That's really how it should work, I think. But the thing is, even if it's like, an egg or a tomato, I mean, the police, what they're going to say, I suppose, is they're going to say, like, there's no meaning in this, there's no representation, right? But, this is the thing. What about Mars bar adverts, right? Now, there's some whistle and there's someone in an advert, singing a tune or walking down the street, dancing. But then, at the end, it says, have a nice day. But what's that got to do with Mars bars? It might not show one Mars bar in the video, but for somehow it's an advert for Mars bars. But there aren't any Mars bars in it, right? It says Mars at the end, right? Well, everyone's making a production for Stop You Les, saying Stop You Les, honk if you hate them, and what's an egg got to do with it? But that has become part of the production part of the video. You're actually getting into Ridley Scott land. You're getting into like production of a production for a declared purpose, right? And what you're getting into then is, the police, there's a lot of things going on, in films and movies that, at the end of the day, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Driving in a Harley Davidson off a ledge, and he's meant to be a hero. It's all fake, it's all fiction, it's not meant to be real, right? But that is a real place. They had to go get permission and hire it out and go through all these procedures to make a movie, right? But the ironic thing is, they aren't petitioning the government and they haven't got a legal case and they're not claiming political rights. They're just making a film for entertainment purposes. Some movies aren't taxed. I've just been looking for some of the taxation laws for Bibles, and I read that they're not taxing the movie industry. Tax exempt, right? Well, we've been paying tax on our political things and we shouldn't have been doing. Now, this is the thing, right? If through the right to petition, protection, immunity, and through the Town and Country Planning Act, if you're doing a promotional activity and adverts in public, on public property, not private property, right? Public. And if those ULEZ vans are public, right? To what extent can you seize them using those powers? What powers? Well, we got powers. Those are the powers. What are the police doing? Oh, we're using powers. Oh, are you? Where did you get those from? Legislation. And, my little dab police oath. Well, here's another act of legislation. Here's some more powers, right? Well, we are making Stop ULEZ promotional adverts. We are using the street. Did you get permission? Don't need it. We're exempt. We've got immunity. All commitments. So this is where the police chief kind of starts getting a little bit fraught, right? But then again, when you get into the whole illegal road signage setup, the whole, Manchester M60 ring road at Bredbury on the way to the airport, has put some speed cameras on the corner at Bredbury, but they're not the other way, even though it's the same bend in the motorway. What's going on here? They're all illegal. It's like some movie set. And then you realise that a lot of these speed entrapment sites are all set up and strategically planned out and timed distance, distracting signs for national speed limit at the side, but you see them when you're going up the road and it's like a dual carriageway, but he's lowered it down and then it hasn't got the proper traffic regulation order in place. Well, I'm making a movie, I'm going to rent the street out and get it closed off. Did you get the proper permissions? Did you go through the proper channels? Well, I'm the police chief. We're going to set this road at 50. Did you get the traffic regulation order? Well, why have I checked it when it's not the right traffic regulation order? According to this, on the A1 at Beeston, it was still national speed limit, right? So why is it 50 mile an hour signs on there? Oh, well, you should still obey the signs. Yeah, but you should get the permission, Oh, we're taking over the street for Stop ULEZ. We are sectioning it off. Have you got authorization for that? This ain't the movie industry. This ain't no theatre. This ain't Broadway. This is a political action. Now, you could say that, look at Extinction Rebellion and so forth. Extinction Rebellion and a lot of these big campaigns have been making contact with the police. Actually, there was a Stop ULEZ video when they were trying to ring the police up and they were trying to give them notice about a ULEZ action. I think it was at that Marble Arch or wherever it was in London. And this guy, one of the Stop ULEZ organisers, he was trying to contact the council and police and ask who they got permission for to tell them they were doing an action, and none of them would say. One of them said, oh, it's not us, it's the council. Then the council said, it's not us, it's the police. And they were actually, none of them would accept responsibility for it. So on that basis, with that evidence, you've gone out of your way to try and pursue, getting authorization for an event, and they've denied wanting liability or responsibility. So, as far as I'm concerned with that, you've got more than you've got with, Prisoners No More channel, who can't even get a police sergeant to give his superior's name, his decision-making name. He wouldn't give the name over, at least, they're claiming that, it's not their responsibility. Now, the thing is, Extinction Rebellion do speak to the police and give notice and make arrangements for certain actions and so forth. But really, if there is certain legislation for that, doesn't seem like there is, or the police and council are trying to deny it when, people are pursuing that, getting authorization. You get into this situation with Rees-Mogg now, with GB News, when, it says that, Rees-Mogg's not meant to be on there and so forth, but then it says that none of the provisions of the Act apply for the exercise and use of a certain enactment. And the same goes in many, many other acts of law. And what it is, it's the same enactment that's in this act that we're using, the Town and Country Planning Act and Statutory Instruments, the 2007 ones, through the use of the same enactment. And this enactment always seems to write a law and rules and provisions, and then it always says that they don't apply in certain instances when you're making certain claims. So it does seem that it is a loophole, and you can do it. Now, I think that it is the power of the people that back it and support it, and there is a big Stop ULEZ petition that I've signed it anyway on change.org, and there are a few. Some of them have been rejected by Parliament, but then again, Parliament have been unlawfully rejecting petitions like, Stop 15-minute cities. They want to create legislation to make all local councils in England have to go through certain procedures. And the petitions committee just rejected it. They said, petition the local council. But yet, when you're wanting a local referendum on something, you have to get the permission. If it's like roads and highways, you have to get permission from the Secretary of State for Transport in Parliament to get a local referendum. So you're not petitioning a local council when, if you get all the signatures, and they've got to ask the Secretary of State. So why not just petition the Secretary of State directly through the Petitions Committee? So the Petitions Committee are full of absolute, complete, total lies at the moment. All this information is correct to the best of my knowledge. So the police are just basically, I don't think they quite know what to do with themselves at the moment. They want to try do some sort of, create some status quo, but, they don't want to answer questions or even tell you who's in charge of certain things. And some people are pursuing getting permissions, and they don't even want to say where you get the permission from and whose responsibility it is, if anyone's. So it is kind of joke at the moment, but it's not a funny joke, because people are facing charges and getting put in cells and put through procedures, which is not nice. But I actually do believe, so to wrap it up, to put it, when it comes down to, should these people even be charged, even if they are or aren't doing anything themselves? And what about the people who are doing something to these ULEZ vans or whatsoever? Well, in the law, you can do it. You can use pain. If no one, if it doesn't mean anything, and if it's not promoting a campaign, right? But the thing is, if someone's throwing eggs at ULEZ van and it's kind of entertaining and funny and it promotes the campaign, then it's absorbed into the part of the production, and you could say entertainment, but it's, maybe some people don't think it's funny, but some people do. It is promoting Stop ULEZ, and it gets absorbed into the set and setting around it. And the thing is, like what I've said before, the police have been acting as kind of like movie star, like there's some sort of movie director, like some sort of porn director or movie star with the speed entrapment sites. He's been having his own little camera van, get lights, camera, action, all right? All the signs in place, is everything paced out? Okay then, just change the traffic lights, send the cars through, lights, camera, action. So that's really what the police chief's been doing, unlawfully, particularly like, with those huge signs on the M60 at Manchester, which are only allowed for roadworks, oversized ones, just joke ones, Sir Peter Fahey, all that set up and so forth. When they've got these camera vans out and they're filming it all, it is kind of like a set, a movie set, really, in a way. But kind of like they're filming crime. It's almost kind of like, and there are lots of TV programmes that make films in and around police officers when they're in action, Do the police officers take the BBC's cameras off them, when they're filming the police live? Apparently that's that, legislation law comes into effect that Carson was talking about, So with this whole going live thing and, putting up on Facebook, that is the actual thing that stops the police from doing it, because you've made an advert and you are promoting the cause or campaign. Doesn't matter whether it's got, the police say, it's got evidence in it for criminal things or not, and we want to seize it. The thing is, there is no crime, because the ULEZ van is being used as a prop to promote the cause. And people are immune, and it has a meaning to it. And when you want to go into that argument around letters and words and meaning, this is the thing with adverts. What does an advert mean if it hasn't got the product in that it's advertising? Why just have a whistle? Look, they got the new McDonald's whistle and another annoying one. Well, what does that mean? It's not a burger. Is it a letter? Is it a, is it representation in any form or by any means? This is the thing. It's just a whistle, but it's not a burger, is it? So this is the thing with the police chief. This would give the police a real headache, really. But the thing is that it's happening. And, I don't think that they should be taking people's drones, cameras and things off them when they're filming stuff for YouTube and Facebook. And then we get into the whole thing of taking the channels down. YouTube and Facebook and TikTok removing the channels when it's promoting a cause or a campaign. And some of these channels aren't getting put back up. And Parliament aren't doing anything to help us. None of the MPs are. I mean, look at Lawrence Fox. He can't even help himself, and he's got, Andrew Bridgen MP there. He's getting prosecuted for, talking about Blade Runners on TV when he's a leader of a political party. That's the police flexing their muscles because they know that his party, I'm not saying that Andrew Bridgen, Andrew Bridgen, has fallen out with the Tories, but he's still a Tory. There's a few matters that Andrew Bridgen disagrees with other Tories, but other than that, he's a safe bet. He can be trusted by the Tories to run the country, other than the few things that he disagrees with them on. I don't like what's happened with Reclaim Party. I think the police really think that Bridgen and Fox were a threat politically, and they kind of banged them, boom. They banged Fox with the law to, put him in his place and rough him up a bit, which that's illegal. Nothing's been done about that. You shouldn't have had to go through any of that. I don't really think Andrew Bridgen's competent in that area because, he's proposing a new bill to stop the WHO, the World Health Organization, from taking our rights away. But there's already the 1700 Act of Settlement in place, which already protects from it. So, and I had to call it out and, complain about it and submit that in a amalgamated petition to Parliament. There's arguments over that. That entire bill that he proposed isn't really necessary, although he did want to try and make some... I don't think he wasn't aware of that 1700 Act of Settlement, but there's nothing wrong with introducing a new bill to try, flesh it out more and, add some more clarification, but it didn't really need the clarification. It was quite clear. I don't expect anyone to listen to this video, but it's quite important. I mean, I think Carson could just play this video when he goes to court, and I challenge the judge and the Crown prosecutor with it. In fact, I might tell him to send it in as evidence because it explains the whole lot. But then again, Max Hill,